Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. We are a community of many genders and sexuality, a community of diverse cultural and racial and class backgrounds, a community of varied abilities and gifts, and we invite you to join us in this place where we come for community, we find inspiration, and we live with purpose together. I'm Linda Battellini, and I'm the chair of your Board of Trustees. Our theme for our services and our discussion groups this month is commitment. And it's also the time of year when we start collecting your pledges to fund the future of our community. I've learned a lot about generosity through my years as a Unitarian Universalist, and I've noticed how my levels of commitment and my generosity wind up being closely aligned. I found that if I was being honest with myself, I had to examine my own giving as evidence of my devotion to my religious community. Devotion is so not a UU word, but ever since I heard a fellow congregant talk about his goal to increase his devotion to his faith, it has been a word that challenges me. It feels like more than a commitment to a task or a promise or a pledge. Devotion feels deeper, more personal, more driven by love, and more connected to who I am as a person and how I want to be part of something larger than myself. The work of deepening my devotion to my church community includes a level of giving that I never anticipated earlier in my life, but that now feels important. Here at UUCA, we have taken to supporting each other through a lot of transition over the last few years by regularly affirming we are the church. What we mean is that this is our spiritual home and that we are not dependent on any one leader or minister or the denomination to keep us going. We are saying that we are the ones who will define who we are as a church and what we can do together. We have the power to do the work we want to do together. And we make a statement about what we can do together by the funding we provide to support the staff, the technology, and the building so critical to our community. Every one of us has a voice in that statement. And in today's service, we'll explore what that might mean for each of us. After the service, please join us in the Zoom coffee hour. See the link on our Facebook posting, the website, in our calendar, in our newsletter. We'll set up small groups where you'll get to meet with 4 or 5 others and talk about the service, about the church, or just get to know each other better. Talking with old and new friends is something that's become one of my favorite parts of the week, and I'm looking forward to meeting you there. And now, Allison Cardy will light our chalice and call us to worship.
I call us to worship this morning with words from Reverend Leslie Takahashi. To worship means to consider that which has worth. Today, we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community. The opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others. The chance to stand up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice. The freedom to choose one's own path to truth and to learn from the travelogues of others. The space to expand one's own spirit and to reconnect after busy or humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of one's life. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love and the aspiration to consider all life as precious. For if all of it is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous? So this morning, let's welcome all of these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies. The blood of the martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion. The sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity. the tears of those who struggle to build better lives for those in this life, the questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understanding to us as a fresh lens, the laughter and joy of those giddy with the embrace of community, the dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and then stretched a little more, the infinite small acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole, done by those who knew themselves in sympathy with our purposes. So today we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward what has been paid forward for us. And now with all of this, let us enter into worship with gladness in our hearts. Now I invite you to join me in lighting a chalice. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world. Hi, my name's Allison, and when I was growing up, one of the things that I really liked to do was play soccer. I loved the big field, the way in soccer you're always creating and moving and making things up. One of my favorite things about soccer, I was a defender, was to read the field and figure out where the ball was going and then to step in and get it before the other team did. Now, as an adult, I volunteer and I coach youth soccer at a recreation level. And our spring season is just about to start, which I'm excited about. And it's a bit different than last spring season when we didn't even get to play together. I'm curious, what sports or arts or hobbies do you like to do? And how have they been different in the past year? If you want to put that in the chat or have an adult help you put that in the chat, we'd love to hear. Even without a formal season last spring, soccer is pretty much always available. If you have somebody to play with and a ball, you can play pretty much anytime. But this season, I'm excited that we get to play kind of in a normal way. And I've started gathering some of my equipment. like cones. I've got shin guards, long soccer socks, soccer cleats, and of course, a ball. So even though you can play whenever, it's fun to play in a league and to have things like Saturday soccer games where you get to go play with your team. You can get dressed in your uniform, grab your water bottle, get to go see your friends, feel excited about how the game is going to go, and try your best out on the field. And this month, one of our themes is commitment, and we're talking about stewardship, which is taking care of things. So a commitment to taking care of things. And I was thinking about all the different parts of a soccer league and how we can take care of them. There are things that cost money, like nets, fields, referees, people to think about the organization of the league and how to set things up fairly. There are things we can take care of with our time, like volunteering to coach or help out or run part of the league and organize. There are also things we can just take care of when we're participating, like picking up our trash when we leave the field. When we're part of a league, when we can be good stewards by giving of our money, our time, and our care to make the league happen for everybody. We take care of the league so that the league can help us and others to play soccer. So I'm wondering, what are some of the parts of the church and the church community that we can help to take care of so that our church can be there for us and for others? What are the places like the field or the equipment, like the nets, and the people, like the coaches, and the activities that we do at church? You can put those in the chat and just think about how we can take care of all of those things. Go stewardship!
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Good morning, McGinnis.
This is so exciting. Our very first day of the annual campaign.
I know, and I love our theme, coming home.
All of us and each of us.
I have been so grateful for the work of the leadership and staff at UCA this past year. The speed and breadth at which they were able to transform to a virtual footprint was just amazing.
Everything from RE to covenant groups to social justice ministries, and the kind of support that we've had so that we can all be together, virtually, of course.
Speaking of which, there's a virtual panel discussion about our pledges and our mission today, right?
Yes, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And then there's some other events coming up.
That's right. On the 25th, Carlton Smith will be joining us and helping us to think about the spirituality of generosity.
And then we have the April 10th event, which is on campus, where we're invited to come on campus, which should be wonderful.
Yes, that will be great. And we'll also be able to pick up a yard sign and an I have pledged card.
Speaking of which, have you pledged?
I have this very morning.
And how did you do that?
I went to our website, which is uucava.org, and I clicked on the little pledge tab. And from there, you'll see a big giant button that says make annual pledge. And I think probably right about now, a very helpful person has just put a link in the chat.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to run because I got to get ready to go to church.
Excellent, me too. And I'm really looking forward to the testimonials that will be right after us.
Cool. Have a happy Sunday.
You too.
I appreciate the opportunities UUCA provides to live our UU values through social justice work. For example, despite the pandemic, we found ways to fight voter suppression through our UU the Vote project, sending 25,000 postcards to mobilize voters of color in key battleground states. I'm proud of the social justice work of UUCA, and I look forward to our future.
Because we take care of each other, whether it's a broken ankle or a broken life. Because we ask each other thorny questions and strive to do good. We try to learn how to become fully human together. Because we can raise a toast together and raise our kids together, and we can laugh and we can mourn together.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Perhaps it feels like that for you today. Or maybe it is enter, breathe out, and come in. Or maybe it is enter, be held in sorrow, come in. I invite you into a time of prayer and meditation, however you are coming in today. Spirit of life and love, God of many names, help us to know this is a community where we can come in however we are. Help us to be that community for each other. Help us to expand the circle even of our usness, so that more and more might enter, rejoice, or breathe out, or be held, and come in. Spirit of life, be with each our hearts and in the spaces between us, today and every day. May it be so, and amen. If you have something you are rejoicing over or sorrowing over, if you have something to share with your community, I invite you to write it now in the chat, to share it during our coffee hour following service, to email pastoralcare@uucava.org, just to reach out and let us know. Spirit of life and love, however we come in, let us know we are welcome.
Spirit of life,
You know, there are a few things that as a minister new to serving this congregation, I have some trepidation about. Oh, the first time I talk about white supremacy culture, maybe. How will people respond to that? Or, oh, well, the first child dedication. Would I be able to bring forth the spirit of child dedications in this congregation? And today, it's the first money sermon. The first sermon that starts us off on the annual campaign that talks about stewardship and giving and money. You know, Unitarian Universalist ministers talk about this particular sermon amongst ourselves. We like to call it the Sermon on the Amount because we think we're very clever. And we bemoan sometimes how our people don't like to talk about money, the people that we serve, or sometimes we bemoan that we have to talk about money. I don't know exactly how all UUCA talks about money, although I'm beginning to learn, but I can imagine some of the challenges. Many Unitarian Universalist congregations don't particularly like to talk about money. In fact, they might rather talk about, even politics or maybe possibly religion or, certainly sex would be better. Now, ironically, the only reason we're able to talk openly in a sex-positive way about sexuality as part of the human experience is that at one point we paid money to a director of religious education to provide our whole lives sexuality education classes. So it all does come around to money after all. I will say that in this particular service, in which we are going to be talking about money, we also brought you so many other wonderful things. We got to hear from Steve and McGinnis and others talking about the beautiful and heartwarming theme of our annual campaign. We brought you a brand new worship associate, Allison Carty, who has joined the worship associates team. 3 cheers for Allison and the beautiful job that she did. I mean, we've brought you a youth playing cello, and it's not even the last youth that you're going to see and gasp over their talent during this service. We really have done our part. And here you are, after all, listening to me talk about money, ideally not having put the mute on. It's interesting for me sometimes to talk with colleagues in other traditions about money, about how their congregations approach money. I remember once a Baptist colleague talking about the practice in his church of taking up a love offering. They were raising money for something in particular in the church, a needed, improvement to the building, let's say. And they knew how much it was going to cost. And so at a service, they said, well, here's how much it's going to cost. We're going to send the basket around and we'll see how we do. And so they would send the basket around, and then it came to the front and, no, there's not enough in here. So we're going to send the basket around again. In fact, he even told me, though I wonder if he was pulling my leg, that they would lock the doors at the back of the church while that love offering went around and around until there was enough love and enough money in the basket for what the church needed. We could perhaps do the reverse. The number of pledges in before Stewardship Sunday would reduce the length of time you have to listen to your minister talk about money by, 1 minute each. Why, I wonder, is it so hard for us to talk about money? Or at least do we think it is? Why is it that we imagine Unitarian Universalists might be able to talk about giving or generosity, but not about cold, hard cash? I wonder if part of it is because our cultural ethos in Unitarian Universalism, not the identity of every Unitarian Universalist by any means, and not even the identity of all of our congregations, but overall, and perhaps at UUCA, our cultural ethos is one of a upper middle class kind of way of being. And in many of those white upper middle class ways of being in particular, it's not polite to talk about money. The thing is, it's easy to say it's not polite to talk about money if you have plenty of it. But I will tell you, it is true that if you don't have plenty of money, you often have to talk about it, or at least think about it, rather a lot. To me, our reticence to talk about money is actually one of the ways that Unitarian Universalists as a whole, and particularly those of us with relative economic privilege, reinforce that privilege in our congregations. By avoiding the impolite topics of money, we reinforce that all of us are in that space of not really having to talk about money, just moving forward as though there is enough of it. I wonder what would happen if instead we cracked open that conversation a little bit more. Not just at pledge season, not just during the annual campaign, but in general. What would it mean to be open about our own class assumptions and backgrounds or current lived experiences, about what money meant in our own lives, the choices we were able to make with our money, the choices that weren't ours to make because they were about rent and food and taking care of our kids, how money plays a role in our lives. What would it mean to have honest conversations about that with each other, I wonder? And what would it mean for how we're able to talk about giving and generosity and stewardship in the congregation at large? UUCA has a really broad range of pledges. And I feel proud of that because to me, it's indicative in part of the fact that we have a broad range of incomes and capacities among our members. Some of us can give small amounts of money, and that is a deeply generous pledge. Some of us can give large amounts of money, and that is a deeply generous pledge. Money is ultimately one of the core tools that we have as we make choices and navigate our way in the world. Some of us have a larger amount of money that we really get to make choices with. Others of us have less. That's choice money, because more of it has to be promised to various aspects of survival or student loan debt, any of the kinds of things that take up big chunks of our money. Sometimes I think when we think about the choices we make with money, we might imagine giving to a congregation to be sort of like giving, sort of like a gym membership, right? We might choose to spend some of our money on food and some of our money on really delicious food that brings us joy. And maybe we're able to choose to use some of our money on a gym membership. And if we want the pool, we'd buy the, extra special gym membership. And if we didn't want the pool, we would just go with the basic model. The thing is, though, that congregations, I think, are much less like a gym membership and much more like maybe a socialist communitarian endeavor. Maybe one of the successful socialist communitarian endeavors, possibly the most successful I've seen, if we're able to do it right. The thing is that in a congregation, none of us, take part in every aspect of the congregation's life. But because we're a member of this larger whole, it's the larger whole, the vision and mission of the congregation and the world that we're giving to. So even though we might not swim in the pool, we want the pool to be there. We want the soccer field to be there, just like in Allison's story, and for there to be jerseys for everyone. In a congregation, we want our children to be educated so that they can be just creators of beauty in the world. We want them to know that they are loved and whole just as they are. And we want that whether or not we have a child in the program right now. We want our music to be beautiful and amazing, whether or not we sing in the choir. We want the mission to succeed. And we know that because of all that broad range of capacities in our congregation, we'll each be able to give a different amount, maybe even a different amount at different times in our lives, in hopes that the congregation succeeds in its mission. Sometimes I think about my own history of giving. I was a dues-paying member, right, of a Unitarian Universalist congregation in young adulthood. I was just out of college. I didn't have a lot of disposable income, though I did come from multi-generational economic privilege. So I was doing okay. But the choice money I had was a lot smaller than the choice money I have now in my life. I made a much smaller pledge at that time in my life than the pledge I'm able to give now. And I will tell you that the feeling of generosity then and now is just the same. I felt proud of the amount that I was able to give then because it was a generous amount. I feel proud of the amount I'm able to give now because it's a generous amount. To me, that generosity is what equalizes us in a congregation like this. Each one of us, according to our means, has the capacity to be generous, to make a choice as we're able to support the larger mission of the congregation that we love. The congregation, when I was a young adult, needed not just the amount I gave, but the commitment it represented, the meanness behind it, just as the congregation needs that from me now and from each of you. Money is a tool, one we use to make choices as we are able in the world. What would it look like if we were able to talk about that tool, to talk about our choices, to understand that each of us has different choices available to us, and that the generosity comes in the feeling of giving, in the commitment we are making toward the larger mission in the world. I think you may get some kind of feeling as you watch a video I'm delighted to share with you, created by one of our newer members, Nora Kubak. I hope you'll enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed helping to support Nora's vision for telling our story this past year. I'm the Reverend Amanda Poppei. I have served here since August 2020, and already this congregation does feel as though it is a home for me and for my family. I think even people who are getting to know us virtually can get the sense of what a warm and welcoming community UUCA is. There's a particular heart for being with each other and for connecting with each other. We have found a way as a congregation, and every person who's been involved, every member who's shown up for a Zoom call or who's watched worship on Facebook, have found ways to continue to be the church together, to be a community with each other. I haven't been able to be in person with the majority of the folks that I serve. It feels like missing something I haven't even had yet. I think a lot of folks are feeling that sense of missing the way we are able to be together usually, and beginning to imagine as the vaccines roll out, as the rates go down, as we look forward, that we will be able to come home. I love the theme of coming home for our annual campaign. When I think about how much more beautiful it will be when we're able to be in person together again, that fills me with joy and a lot of hope for what it is that we're going to be building together in the future. When I think about the pandemic, I think a lot about how we're going through it all together, and at the same time, we are experiencing it in really different ways. Maybe we are financially strapped this year. Maybe we are lonely this year. We want to make sure we build a congregation that's strong enough to be able to support us no matter what we've been through this past year, no matter what we go through in the years to come, that the congregation can support all of us. That means that some of us who are able to give more, so that those of us who aren't able to give more can be part of that really vibrant community, so that we create a congregation strong enough for all of us to be there and to be able to fulfill our mission in the world. Nora, thank you so much for that video and for capturing a little of what this congregation looks like and feels like and sounds like, both in the before times and during this challenging, remarkable, unusual, and shifting year. I love the way that Nora finished by pointing us toward our visions and dreams. I have been listening to all of you over the last 7 months now, listening for what your visions and dreams are for the congregation, where you hope that we might go together. And you have painted some beautiful ones. In the conversations that Sophia and a great task force of members and I have led around music at UUCA, you've talked about hoping we can return to a children's choir, to music in our RE classrooms, to a house band, to space for everything from gospel to classical to rock, with more UUCAers engaged in creating music than ever before. Those of you involved in social justice have shared with me your passions, the dedication that you have to the work that you do and to the communities that you've partnered with. And those have been incredibly helpful as the hiring team and I have been looking for the right next assistant minister to join. Someone who will build on the work that Reverend Walter has done with the social justice ministries team, working on creating a vision, bringing the eighth principle and anti-oppression work into our justice work, living into our historic legacy as a congregation that is about justice in the world and within our own community. I have heard your dreams about RE as well. Partly I've heard those dreams in the longings we've held, how much we miss being together, our teachers, our children, our youth. We know that in the year to come, we're going to need to be able to serve children in multiple ways, that we're going to need to be able to rebuild community for youth, make sure that our RE program is fully staffed for that work and that eventuality, and that we may need to figure out how to support kids that are still staying at home and kids that are ready to be together. Oh, speaking of multi-platform planning, the staff and I gathered to begin to think about what we would need in the weeks and months ahead. I said it felt like we were entering the phase of speculative fiction, imagining a future none of us have experienced before. And yet I know that this is the team to imagine it together, this staff team and this congregation team. We know that we are going to want to be together in different ways, and that we'll need not only tech, but also adequate staffing to make that happen. It's been truly remarkable to me to see how the staff have adapted from physical presence to virtual presence. And I know that when we are physical with each other again in physical proximity, and we are so ready and hoping, we are also going to need to remember that there will be folks who will remain virtual. And that A plus B, both of which required the entirety of our staff's attention, won't be able to somehow magically combine to make A plus B. Instead, that we're going to be inventing and creating together. So all of these things, all these visions and hopes for who our congregation will be, who our congregation will serve, all of that takes money, right? Really, what it takes is people. And I'm just going to be real with you. The majority of our expenses, like most congregations, go toward our people. When I think about those people, about those on our staff now and those who will join our staff in the future, I don't want to just have enough people to help UUCA live out its mission, although I do want enough people on staff for that. I also want us to be a congregation that treats our people fairly, that pays them well according to the UUA's guidelines, that takes seriously the congregation's role as employer. I want our vision of a just and equitable world to start here in our own community, at home. So yes, our mission takes money because the people of UUCA help us to live our vision. And I don't know about the rest of the staff, but I find that my mortgage check requires payment with actual money, which means I do appreciate receiving that in my paycheck. So yes, our mission, our vision, our dreams, they are beautiful and amazing. It's incredible to imagine with you what we could become. And it takes cold, hard cash to make it possible. You did such a good job. So much talking about cash and money, about generosity and giving at many different amounts, and the way they are the same impulse towards stewardship in our hearts. About the idea of a congregation as a socialist endeavor, each giving what they are able so that all can receive what they need. And we didn't even pass a basket. Well, then again, we weren't together in real life. But the basket is coming, friends. Maybe not the way my colleague described, around again and again and again. But it is coming. And our invitation to you is to think deeply about how money makes our mission possible and about what kind of gift you are able to give this year. I am so grateful for the generosity of UUCA in bringing us this far. You have a long history of building amazing things in this community and in the world. And I believe in our possibility to bring it even further. You've stuck with me, friends, through this talk. And now we have rather an amazing young person to sing for us. And in the end, I think that is what it is all about.
From the light of days remembered shines a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger
UUCA is once again sharing its offering with community partners who serve those in need. The focus between now and March 27th will be direct support to local partners helping individuals combat the devastating impact of the COVID pandemic. The first of those partners is the residents of Buckingham. These neighbors with whom we have partnered since 2007 have been particularly hard hit by the coronavirus. 70% of your donations made until this Sunday will be used to purchase grocery gift cards to be distributed in collaboration with the Resident Services Manager and the Arlington County Community Outreach Specialist. Both of these offices are on site and have intimate knowledge of the residents' needs, so we know they will be served well. There are many ways to pledge: through our website, by text, the Give Plus app, and by mailing a check. Make sure to mark Share the Plate in the memo line. As you are making your donations, know that 70% of what you give will be going directly to people in need. Please give accordingly and consider adding a little extra to your gift this week, knowing this. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we go walk it out. And mountains, gonna walk it out. Mountains.
And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up,
Friends, my hope is that life is like a congregation at its best, all giving what they are able in many ways so that all can receive what they need. My wish for you this week is that you receive what you need. And I am glad to be taking this journey of commitment, of choice, of vision with you. May it be so.